everyone. My name's Taylor St. Germain with ITR Economics, and thanks for joining me on this episode of TrendsTalk. We at ITR Economics are your apolitical and unbiased source of economic intelligence. And today we had a special guest on the podcast with Steve Baker, who's the vice president of the Great Game of Business and also an author and public speaker. We work very closely. We at ITR work very closely with the Great Game of Business and are very appreciative of the partnership that we have with them. We've interacted with the Great Game of Business at conferences and with our clients over the past few years. They're a great resource for you. We learn a lot from them, and I hope you learn a lot from my conversation here with Steve. Here's my conversation with Steve, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Well, Taylor, it's awesome to be here. I love doing work with ITR Economics.
Well, we really appreciate it. I want to jump right in. I know your time's valuable, and we'd love to get your insight. So I'll jump right into the first question that I have for you here. And that's, as we face this economic environment this year, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you're sharing with your clients as it relates to navigating the economy and really some of the headwinds we're facing this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's probably not much different than you would advise people. The first one is ignore the media. I mean, it's insane out there. And so you can't find, well, if you find some news outlet that's actually news, I would really like to know what it is. And so you guys have taught me since 2014, when I think I first read Alan and Brian's book, that we need to find good resources for our information. So number 1 is ignore the media. Number 2 is go find your data, meaning ITR Economics, look at your industry associations, not only look at your data, but understand it. And so here at SRC and the Great Game of Business, we're very much market-based, reality-based in our approach to business and business strategy and planning. So if you do those things, you're going to be looking at the numbers in a different way. And you do have to teach your team, and I mean from executives on, right? It's not just an assumption that every executive is going to understand what it is, because we all bring our head trash, to the party. Third piece, so it's, ignore the media, get your own data and understand it and teach your people. And then the other one is to take some kind of action. I mean, to me, that is the thing that's gumming everybody up. A lot of people are paralyzed with fear. And so for me, the action, any action can be a cure for fear. I've even run into some people. We have a couple of coaches that are like, any decision is probably better than no decision. I'm not certain I would recommend that to everyone if they don't have a history or track record of great decisions. But, there's something to be said for getting off the block.
Really 2 questions here, but I think they're similar, which is some of the common issues you're seeing across clients right now, and maybe how the economy factors into those issues. I think those 2 questions are somewhat intertwined there, but I figured I'd give you both, because I think
I love it. I mean, then we could go deep as you want to go here, man. But margin compression seems to be a really big one for a lot of people. So we're looking at a lot of the clients that I'm working with, and also the audiences I'm speaking to, are really complaining about interest rates, and they're complaining about, well, I mean, we all are, right, about
Sure.
inflation as an example. But if we add it all up, those increasing costs and the tougher, look, you guys are the ones that advised everyone last year, if you haven't gotten your price raises in right, by the end of the year, you're probably not going to get it. And I know a lot of people just waited too long. So, margin compression would be one. I think talent's the other big one. And I'd like to address that in a way, because you said, well, how does the economy play into it? And I know that I think you all had done a bit of a tweak on the numbers, where it was 2 to 1 jobs for people, and now it's 3 to 2, if I'm not remembering that incorrectly. And so in a way, you'd say, well, it's getting better, but it's still going to be a tight labor market. That's just the way that it is. And so I think that, people that I run into have been almost afraid to admit how good they're doing. And so they look at, I think there's a lot of tentativeness around, oh, it's an election year, there's war, there's conflict worldwide. And so that all plays into the economy. And to me, the economy plays in, if we can look at it with reality, which you guys help us do, which is to say, when do I get off the sidelines? When do I jump in? When do I invest in things that I need to invest in to build a great company? And that's what you're going to have to do, is build a great company. The stuff you make, the services you provide are not what you're all about. The company is actually the product. So focus on building that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned America gained market share this last year. We expanded our distance in terms of being the largest economy over this last year. So yeah, I think that feeds into the misinformation, and I think the labor part that you're mentioning is so important because exactly, I look at that ratio, and you're right that about 3-2 ratio. Another way to look at it, for every one job opening, there's only zero point 0.7 people, right? That's that ratio you're
There you
talking
go.
about. And
Yeah.
so we need to find ways to get our workforce more engaged, because we're going to need them with this labor shortage. During a down year when industrial production's in a recession, it's so unusual to see the labor force still this tight, the labor market still this tight. And so I think that's why we really need to embrace ways to make these workers more efficient with a lot of our automation, innovation, robotics, all artificial intelligence. But we really need to get this younger workforce excited about,
Yeah.
participating here in the future, because with the baby boomers retiring, we're going to need everyone we can get.
Yeah, and that was my point. Thank you for clarifying that, Taylor, because I believe that, because I still feel I'm 20 in my head, right? I mean, that's where I'm at. But I also understand that, in reality, my programming, whatever you want to call it, how I was raised and everything, it's different than next gen. So I have to be the guy who says, okay, I'm telling you right now, folks, it isn't just artificial intelligence, it's financial intelligence, because millennials in particular have a lower financial acumen, according to all the research that we've done, than the baby boomers and than Gen X. What I'm suggesting to you is that let's teach them that America doesn't suck as much as they thought, and
Sure.
that it's a great place for opportunity, for growth. And with all of this baby boomers, I'm on the cusp, I'm just like to say that for the record. That as we exit, holy cow, that's a lot of opportunity. So what are you going to do? If you're going to really be like where our mission is to close the gap between the haves and have nots by teaching people the secret. And that's financial information and education and understanding. If we don't do that for our coworkers, our kids, our peers, etc., we're probably looking at a lot of people who will just be dragging along, kind of going, well, it just happened. No, 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 we can't take that. So
Yeah, and that's how we don't call it the Great Depression anymore, because there's nothing great about economic downturns. But I guess the other side of that equation, and what I share on stage a lot, is if you're prepared for a recession, depression, any type of economic downturn, it can be one of the most profitable times that you experience, or one of the times where you can grow your market share in the most meaningful way, right? And that's what I share with everyone is, hey, we have 5 years of economic growth in the second half of this decade, according to our forecasts.
yeah,
And so you have 5 years to be making investments now, recoup those investments, find yourself in a low leverage situation, and build this cash. And if you have these resources to deploy in the 2030s, you're going to be buying businesses for half the cost or half the valuation they are now, people, additional equipment. We still have a client that was prepared for 08, 09 because they were working with us, and
uh-huh.
they still send us a thank you every year because of how cheap they were able to replace all their equipment, because they had cash ready to do that at the bottom of the cycle, right? And so
Wow.
that's what it's so important. And I think your point is exactly, we can be afraid of this and continue life as is. But if we really attack this thing and live a little below our means, build up that wealth, even an individual like me, I'm thinking, hey, great time for my second house in 2030 if I take the time to prepare, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's so much to be excited about, even though it is a challenging time, but it's all about that preparation leading up to it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law bought a house in Key West in '09 because someone was leveraged too much. He had the cash. And I'm just like going, I look back, you can Zillow it now and it's a couple $1 million. I'm like, oh my God, I know what he paid for that. He's not that smart. I hope he
Yeah.
doesn't watch this. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh my God. No, I'm just like, I'm amazed at what can happen when you're prepared. And I love that story that you told. And people should be thanking you because this is information. So here's a pro tip for everybody watching and listening now, and that is take all this in, make your plans, and don't tell anyone about ITR Economics or the great game of business. And you're going to rock it, man. I would like to say something else because something happened last weekend that I haven't really spoken on stage or anything yet. It just happened. But, I think a lot of people are waiting for something that isn't coming. I don't mean 2030. What I mean is like they're hanging on, they're sitting on the sidelines, they're waiting to invest and that sort of thing. And whether it's lower interest, lower inflation, easier labor market, whatever it is. But I think they might be missing something. I don't think they know any better. Like many of our clients weren't born in the '70s, maybe even the '80s. Many of my clients, that they don't remember the '90s. I don't remember the '80s. But hey, look, let's not even get into that. But here's the thing: is my kids, they're 20 somethings,
Yeah.
they don't know what a recession is because we protected them from it as parents. Right? And so now I'm going, I'm working so hard to teach them about what you guys teach, but in a way that they can take it in. And they are. But here's the thing that happened last weekend. Talked to my mom and dad. They're 89. And I asked them straight up, I said, how did you guys live? Because back then I looked it up. 12% inflation, 17% unemployment. They had an 18% mortgage. Dude, how did you even sleep at night? Mom said, we didn't know any different. Dad said, entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs will always find a way.
Yeah.
And they ran a business and raised 5 of us. We didn't know any different. I had a great childhood. And, what can I say is let's go back to we got a normal here. Get off the sidelines. Stop waiting for something. Now's the time. Don't miss the 25, 26 train. Because if you have that talent that you're thinking about hiring and you have to pay for it, invest. If you got to put in that new machine or that new system, that new tech, do it because if it takes a year to get them on board or get them up to speed or to get that system in place, whatever, holy cow, is it 2026 already? So great advice you guys are giving, and I'm following it and I'm passing it along as well.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. And I think you're already getting into the next question I had for you, which is how have you seen our methodology help some of your clients? And how have you maybe employed some of this, the rate of change methodology, the leading indicator methodology?
Yeah. So I will tell you this. Knowing that you have clients that have been working with you for many years and somebody is sending you thank you notes, I'm so jealous in a way. But I'm sure glad we found you when we found you because starting in 2009, you can imagine, again, we're in the remanufacturing sector. So it's ag, construction, um, trucking, automotive, defense, all that stuff, right? All different kinds of sectors. When we look at it, we got hit really hard, but we said Jack Stack led us through this process. He first said we're going to take fear out of the organization. So here's the facts. The next thing is we're going to make sure that the jobs that are here are secure. And so that was the next step. That takes more fear out. And then it was no matter what happens, we're going to grow the business, but at the same time, we're going to build a war chest of $100 million in cash so that by 2019, because we know it's going to break again, right? The world seems to break every 10 years. And,
Yep.
and he's like, we're going to be ready for the next recession. And with your help, we also forecasted that. Now, what's interesting is we made it, but you know what happened in 2019? It's like, ever heard of Wuhan? We all have now. And we were prepared in a way that we never would have been prepared for a pandemic because, man, having cash helps you through a lot of different things. And when other people were suffering, we've gone 40 years without a layoff. I think that's unprecedented. And to go through that situation, knowing that that wasn't even our worry. Our worry was, how are we going to grow during a tough time? And a pandemic was another time where we sat down and Jack got to all of our people, not only in the company, but in our community at Great Game of Business. So thousands and thousands of people saying, it's time to take fear out. And this is how we're going to do it. Let's get the facts. You guys came in, right, as part of that equation. So for us, it was build a war chest, and we saw how that worked, and we're doing it again. Other people, some are building war chests, some are working on their competitive advantage. Others are growing through acquisition right now because they do have cash, and they're saying it might not be the best market to buy in, but it's better than it was. And we're not sure what's going to happen next. So let's go ahead and grow, because they want to be super positioned to dominate in their industries in tough economic times. So I think one of the things you mentioned, talent, and how much talent will become available in between 2030 and 2036. I mean, really, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, the best talent in the world will be there for the picking. And I believe that building the stickiest culture that you possibly can. That's why people come to us with Great Game of Business. Is, that's one of the things we do very well with your data, with our applications. I look at us as like the last mile. You take us all the way through the macro, and then we get into the micro and say, well, how do you do that now? What does execution look like? That sticky culture is going to be building all the way up to 2030. And if you can build a resilient, anti-fragile organization where people are going, we knew it was coming, and I'm okay. Actually, I'm okay at home too. Just okay is all I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be perfect. You guys have written beautifully, by the way, about how the 2030s will not be like the 1930s. That has helped me a lot personally, dude. Seriously, thank you. I don't want to thank Brian, of course, but the key is, what are we doing with it all, and can we be ready when that turbulence hits?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a lot of the conversations we're having with our internal clients is exactly that. It's how do you listen, it's 24, 25. Yeah, things will be a little slower this year, and then we're going to take off. So if you have this war chest, if you have the talent, and Jack actually said at the last meeting we were at, last conference, he said, I believe whoever wins talent is going to win this next decade. And,
There you go.
I think it's so spot on. So I think I appreciate you highlighting how we can help there, because these are all things that we forecast on a regular basis and really look at talent. We look at, cash, interest rate perspectives. When are some of these best times? I think the timing perspective is so important with ITR, as you've highlighted here as well. So we really appreciate that. You've given us a lot of advice throughout this conversation already. But if you had to pick maybe one or two major themes that you're talking about for 24 and 25 in terms of advice you're giving your own employees within the company or businesses you're working with, what would maybe those one or two big items be?
Well, I'll start with the data again, just to say, like you mentioned, the rate of change and that sort of thing. People need to not just go, hey, what does ITR say? Because honestly, you can be passive about it. But to really calculate your own rate of change, Taylor, that's harder than it looks at first. And then it gets easier. But understanding it is the other part. How are you going to use that and teach your people? So it is about get the data and start educating your leadership team, and then your people. That would be one of the big ones, is get the right data and then know where it's coming from and then keep up with it. And then my other big one, this is our mantra. It is build a great company. The company is the product. So if you focus on all the things that are in your way of being a great company before 2030, in other words, we have some debt, pay it off. We're a little lacking in talent, go get it. All those things, anything that, if you just identify what makes a great company and you look at your balance sheet and you look at your team and you say, well, these are the things that a great company probably would do better at, work on those things. You have 3-5 years, somewhere in there, whatever that magic number, that's enough time to get ready. And you'll be powered up, you'll be low debt, you'll be great talent, and you'll be positioned to take advantage when everyone else is panicking. And as Warren Buffett said, buy when there's blood in the streets, not your own, right? wow, it's cold, but it isn't, because I'm telling you, man, if it has to be that way, I'd rather that me, my team, my family, my kids, that they are the ones that also take advantage of that, because even though, what did you say, $27 trillion? Did I hear that run number right?
21 trillion. Yeah,
21
21
trillion
trillion.
dollars. Do you know how fast that will dwindle away if it's used incorrectly?
Mm,
People are waiting to take that away from the next generation, right?
yes.
One way or another.
Mm.
They're just looking for a way. And so if some is going to be good, some is going to be nefarious, but the fact is it will be taken away if you don't know what to do with it. So get smart and build that great organization. And Taylor, that's one of the reasons why we're sponsoring the executive series webinar, where Alan and Brian will be kind of doing their last duet together. We're pretty excited about that. Not the breakup, but you know what I mean.
We really appreciate it, Steve. Thanks so much for being here today.
Anytime. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Trends Talk. Please remember to like and subscribe to Trends Talk wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll have more great content and guests coming your way, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.